Tonight begins the Paschal Triduum, the period of 3 days that includes the liturgies for Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and Easter. It is quite simply the holiest time of the year in the Christian calendar. This night we look back in remembrance. To remember is foundational to who we are as Christians. To retell the story of our ancestors and how God's love has interceded for us throughout each and every generation. We see how God's love interceded on behalf of the Hebrews in the story of the Passover. We see how the blood of the slaughtered lamb was a sign of the Lord's protection and provided new life for the people of God. We are reminded of what the Lord said to Moses and Aaron. This day shall be a day of remembrance for you. You shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord. Throughout your generations, you shall observe it as a perpetual ordinance. We see how God's love intercedes on behalf of first-century Christians as Paul tirelessly works on bringing the people of Corinth from division to unity. He repeats the words of institution, "This is my body that is for you. Do this in remembrance of me. This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this as often as you drink in remembrance of me." He does not repeat these words simply to remind the people of Corinth what Jesus said, but to remind them of the new life that comes from doing this together, for they are bound together with Christ. And we see how God's love interceded on behalf of the disciples as Jesus, who is the revealer of God, undertakes the act of supreme servanthood, indeed supreme love. Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example that you also should do as I have done to you. Through the celebration of this night, God's love not only intercedes on our behalf, but reminds us why we are here, to live the new commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. I have to admit, this is not an easy thing to do, loving one another. Now, yes, inside these four walls, we've got this, right? We know how to do it. We show love to the people we know and are familiar with in the common places of our life. But how far beyond our own boundaries do we go to seek and serve the stranger? Do our words, and more importantly, our actions, reflect the love that Jesus so humbly portrayed on that holy night? Think about all that is going on in our world today. We've got a war in Ukraine, an innocent people, children dying. We had a home terror attack where people were shot just trying to get to work in the morning. And there could have been more danger with explosions and bombs. Their gun attacks seems like almost every single week. And they just kind of pass through our conscious now. There are people taking their lives because they're in so much pain and they're hurt. And then there's the political arena where there's so much division and hate. We can't even see how much common ground we actually have. So hard to see the supreme servanthood that Jesus set for us as an example in our world today. And yet, God intercedes. God's love intercedes. God's love is shown in the faces of the stranger who becomes the rescuer. The one who brings food to the hungry, a drink to the thirsty, an ear to someone who needs to speak. God's love is shown when one speaks for the voiceless and who cares for the sick, who feeds all the hungry, and who becomes the servant. Brothers and sisters in Christ, we are all the stranger. We are all the stranger. May our actions this night set upon our hearts, and may we be reminded that this night is to not just remember, but to do in remembrance of him.